What's up, scrappyard? I hope you guys are all doing good today. For today's video, I wanted to teach you guys how to play LOBA in Season 13. So without further ado, let's get started. Bam ba bam bam bam. Bam ba bam 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 ba 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 bam bam ba bam bam. The first thing you're gonna want to do is, oh, damn, shit. Yes, I know that LOBA is broken this season, and I'll address that in a second. But there are still plenty of people out there that play LOBA right now that have been waiting for tips like this. So I'm gonna give them to you. And as for the bracelet bug, I understand how aggravating it is. And it's been faulty all season, but it was never really that bad. And then they pushed out this update yesterday, and now I'm having more issues than I ever have all season with her bracelet. Just like every other time, this will not be resolved until the new season. That's typically how they go about LOBA issues. So before I give you her tips for this season, because of the bug, it's best to use the bracelet when pushing an enemy. Throw your bracelet up to high ground like you normally would do, and this is how you know if your bracelet will work for that fight. Obviously, if it doesn't work, then don't even bother trying it. In doing so, you can come up with different plays that are centered around your lack of a bracelet. On the contrary, if it does work, then keep playing normally. And that's pretty much all I want to talk about for the LOBA bug. And now I'll teach you guys how the number 1 LOBA plays her in Season 13. By now, I'm sure you guys have watched my previous videos on how to play LOBA. Pretty much they are comprised of several different LOBA tactics, such as taking high ground, opening new angles, bracelet escapes, using her ult to block doors, things like that. So if you haven't watched those videos yet and you truly want to become a better LOBA main, watch those videos real quick. I'll link them in the description. For those that have seen them already, I'm going to do my absolute best to give you guys new tips that I have not given yet. And that's going to be using LOBA as the primary entry fragger. An entry fragger is a person that gets the first knock, and it's something that LOBA is very good at doing. After all, she is a support character and people tend to play her as such. That is, playing behind her teammates and supporting them, which is fine, but it's Season 13 now. You should be using LOBA in an aggressive manner. So how can you use LOBA as an entry fragger? And this is especially important for ranked. I also like to call this LOBA shit. When my team asks why I'm so far away, I simply tell them I'm doing LOBA shit. That pretty much involves me pushing up before my team in a manner that pretty much leaves me exposed. And if I were to use any other character, I would be dead if I were to get pushed by the enemy. Because of the accuracy and the quickness of her bracelet, you can escape situations in a millisecond without taking a lot of damage. So keeping that in mind. And remember, this tip is especially important for ranked. When approaching an enemy team, it is your job as a LOBA main to grab a wide right or wide left angle around the enemy team, completely by yourself. Obviously, it's okay if a teammate follows you, but typically you want to stray away by yourself on a wide angle. And as I've stated before, what that does to the enemy team is force them closer together, which makes it difficult for them to cover every angle. And by grabbing these wide angles, this often sets you up to get that first knock on the team, because you'll usually surprise the enemy by taking an angle that they do not suspect you to peek from. Again, this is what I refer to as LOBA shit. A caveat to this though is, if a good team recognizes somebody is completely isolated, they are going to ISO that individual and send 2 or 3 people to go kill that person. And this is something that you always have to keep in mind when using LOBA as an entry fragger. So if you do get full sent, simply brace it back to your teammates and do as best as you can to not take any damage. And simply repeat this process until you do get that first knock. That's a real sweaty LOBA tactic right there. The whole repeating the process is very important. If done correctly, you're pretty much maneuvering throughout the entire fight, opening up new angles, confusing the enemy team, inflicting lots of damage, all while maintaining a healthy distance between you and the enemy. And if stuff ever gets bad, then brace it back to your team or brace it to safety. That right there is a skill that I've taught nobody, and I don't think a lot of people understand. That tip right there is how I get Apex Predator every season as a LOBA main. And this works in pubs just fine as well. So if you want to practice it there, then do that. But this tip is so advanced that it's best to utilize it in ranked. Now we're on to the second LOBA tip. This tip pertains to her ultimate, and pretty much is using her ultimate to distract the enemy. What I mean by that is placing the Black Martin down as soon as you're about to push an enemy to drown out the sounds of your footsteps. As we know, the layering of audio is very bad in this game, so when the black market expands and makes that little shockwave and emits that loud noise, this is enough to cover up your footsteps. Obviously for a very short-lived time, but it buys you just enough time to catch the enemy by surprise and hopefully kill him. Sometimes I'll even put it down in the wide open if I have an enemy team on high ground. This is because most people will immediately try to find where that LOBA ult is, because in their mind that means someone's about to loot it, which is an easy kill for them. Knowing this information, sometimes I'll place my ult in the wide open and I'll pre-aim the angle that they're about to peek from. So if and when they do look at the ult, I'll already have the freest shots on them, which can help me get that entry knock that I was talking about earlier. I kind of call that trick the bot magnet. There are so many times in pubs and ranked where I'll place that ult down and people immediately start pushing me. And again, I'm ready for that. I'm holding that angle and I'm killing them. For the third tip, we'll talk about using LOBA in ranked for endgame. And pretty much it's just using her ultimate for armor swaps at the end of a game. If you're bunkered up in the house last ring with a few squads left alive, it's always good to pick up armor from your ult and place it on the floor to use as an armor swap, which can obviously help you win those crazy endgame fights. And this should go without saying, but my friend Model Morg made sure that she reminded me to be careful when picking up the same armor swap that you just dropped. I'm not gonna lie, that's happened to me several times too. Another tip we could talk about is throwing her bracelet when escaping or running from an enemy in a direction that is covered by a lot of obstacles. This is to make it difficult for the enemy to chase you. So if you need to escape, beware of your surroundings and throw your bracelet from, let's say, roof to roof, where they'll have to utilize a Pathfinder or Horizon or an Octane to get to roof to roof. See what I'm saying? So if they're not playing any movement character, let's say it's a Gibby, Bloodhound, and Bangalore team chasing you. If you need to run away from them, simply just throw your bracelet on the nearest roof, since it is an area that's very hard for them to push. Same exact concept, but you could throw it through a window or through an entire building like 5 stack in construction, across lava, across an open part of the map like on Olympus. That right there is how you increase the effectiveness of your bracelet. As we all know, the bracelet doesn't get you that far distance wise, but if you use it in the manner like I just described, you will get the most bang for your buck when using her bracelet. Not all the time you'll be able to do this, but most of the time you can. And if you have any other question about LOBA, let me know in the comments, or pop by my stream, which is Scrappy on Twitch, and ask me there. Yeah, those are tips that I've never really given before for LOBA. I would call these elite tips. Tips that if you use, you'll start to play LOBA more like me, which is something that I'm sure a lot of LOBA mains would strive for. Regardless, I hope you guys learned something. Again, feel free to ask me anything that you guys would like, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Bam, ba, bam, bam, bam. Bam, ba, bam, 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 ba, 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 bam, bam, ba, bam, bam, bam. Bam, ba, bam, 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 ba, ba, bam, bam, ba, bam, bam, bam. Bam, ba, bam, 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 ba, 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 bam.